they come out with a flimsy excuse by saying it's the product of the union, the law. We know. We've been outside.
This is Steve Zeltzer with Workweek. And on May 20th, there was an election for the national president of the SEIU. SEIU has 1.8 million members, second largest union in the country. And at the convention, there was an opposition candidate to April Verrett, Avery Horton. And he has made some complaints about the election and the election process and the fact that, according to him, the rank and file members of the SEIU were not even informed that there was going to be a convention and they would be eligible to run for that convention as delegates. So welcome to our show, Avery.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
So you're a board member of SEIU 503 in Oregon. You're a home care worker. How big is that local, and how did you become a board member?
Our local is a little over 44,000 members, and we represent a little over 70,000 workers. And I ran for the board. We had 4 new board seats open to give the care providers more representation on the board, since we comprise about a third or maybe 2/5 of our union. And so when those 4 seats were open, I ran, and I won on the first pass because it was a ranked choice voting.
And you have had some issues with SEIU as far as membership control. Did you have a struggle just to get elected as a board member of that local?
I ran a few times for local president, and I filed some complaints to the Department of Labor. And unfortunately, the Department of Labor has very narrow jurisdiction. And the last one was that they said that the board gets to interpret the bylaws the way they want it. So they've basically been playing musical chairs, where there'll be a board for one sector or one region or one other position for a couple of terms. Then they switch positions because we're supposed to have term limits, 2 terms in any 6-year period. And to me, the way it reads is 2 terms means 2 terms. If you're a board member, you're a board member. Not if you're sitting in this chair for 2 terms, then you can switch seats with somebody else for 2 terms. It's ridiculous. I think we have some people on the board who've been there 4, 5, 6 terms in a row.
Was this your first national convention of the SEIU?
Yes, it was. And it's international convention, yes.
Because the SEIU has members not just in the United States,
Canada, Puerto Rico, and a few other places, and they're looking to expand into a few other countries too.
So how did you get to the convention? What was the process that got you to the SEIU International Convention?
Well, as a board member, I'm an automatic delegate under our bylaws. And the way it works is, depending on your number of members, you get so many delegate seats. And we had more seats than we actually had board members. So we held an election, and I think we elected either 4 or 6 delegates to also go with us to the convention.
So when you went to the convention, I know that this is a highly orchestrated affair. They probably spend millions of dollars on the convention. What was it like going to the convention? Did you find it as a democratic process? Did you know that April Verrett was going to be running for president? Did you know that there was going to be even an election?
I had heard in the past that the presidents of SEIU elect the president of International, but that wasn't good information. So when I got to the convention on the first day, there was new delegate orientation. So I attended that, and I realized at that time that there was maybe a chance for me to run, because there was only one other candidate running, and I was thinking I might run. So then I went to the rules committee, and they said different rules than what I was told in the new delegate orientation. And so I said, well, that's not what I was told. And the guy looked me dead in the eye, because I was sitting right in the front row, and he says, we're the rules committee, we make the rules. So it's like, okay, now I understand. And by the time I got back to find the lady that did the new delegate orientation, they had already called her and said, hey, you did it wrong. And so when I got there, they thanked me for paying attention and bringing that up. But now I realized that, hey, I could self-nominate, and I would get 7 uninterrupted minutes at the microphone in front of the entire delegation.
And what happened after you decided that you were going to self-nominate and become a delegate for international president of SEIU?
Well, what happened was I mentioned it. I don't even remember who exactly I mentioned it to. I think it was maybe a couple of people. I said, you know what? I just might self-nominate for president. Well, that somehow spread around, and then my president with another one of our delegates approached me at dinner and basically tried to talk me out of running. And I listened. I said, "Well, I'll think about it, but you know." And then he says, "Well, I'll give you some time at the end of our caucus meeting because we would caucus after dinner every night to figure out what we're going to do the next day." And I go, "Well, you don't have to do that." But he did it anyway, so he basically brought me in front of the all of our delegates. He goes, Avery, we hear you might self-nominate. And so we want to give you an opportunity to, talk to us and convince us why you should be president. I go, well, I don't have anything to say, but I will answer any questions. But first, let me ask a couple of questions. And I asked, how many people in here knew about this election before? And most of the hands went up because we had gone to a pre-convention orientation, which was basically a way for the team April to visit all the locals under the guise of talking about the convention. So after which they could basically campaign and fundraise. But back to the main point was there was still a couple of hands didn't go up. And then I said, well, how did you know? And this one guy got really irate. Well, I don't have to tell you. And it's just like, it's like everybody settled down. That was a fair question because since I've been back, I've been to a couple of our regional meetings and I've asked members, I say, did you know there was a convention last week? No. I said, did you know you had the right to nominate a candidate for president, including yourself? They're like, no. So there really wasn't any following of or adhering to the rights that were given by federal law to nominate candidates and to be apprised and informed of union business.
And that's a requirement.
That's under the LMRDA, Labor Management Reporting and Disclosure Act.
Under those rules, the rank and file members are entitled to be informed if there's going to be a national convention and entitled to say that they can run in that convention or they can participate.
That's correct.
And so when you found out about this, apparently you say that also Team April was actually campaigning around the country using union dues. Is that true?
Well, that's what I suspect. That's what I allege because, they flew the president, the secretary treasurer, who was April at the time, and like 3 or 4 of the executive vice presidents. Their salaries totaled over $1 million. And, each one of them spoke for maybe 15 minutes. Yeah, it's the point being is that, if union funds were to pay for those tickets and to pay for the hotels, then they should not have been campaigning during that trip. I don't care if it was before the meeting or after meeting or at lunch. The point is, other people were not afforded, that same luxury of flying around the country to talk to the various locals on the members' dime.
And at the convention, so you spoke to your delegation and you answered questions, and then what happened?
Then the next morning, the executive director saw me on the floor, and then she was like telling me I shouldn't run, and telling me things. You hate this union. Why are you even in the union? And basically tried to intimidate me. And then I later found out that she's a member of Team April because on Wednesday, the 22nd, she was voted in as one of the vice presidents. And it's just like, that's really, bullying, intimidation, harassment, because, this was just an ongoing thing. And it's just wrong because the fact that she was on Team April, she should not have approached me at all.
And were you able to speak at the convention and nominate yourself?
Yes, I was.
What was that like?
It was great. Like I said, I got 7 uninterrupted minutes at the mic, and when I was done, some people clapped. They had the roll call vote, and actually 11 delegates voted for me. Except, and I voted for myself, of course. And so many people came up to me that they wanted selfies, to shake my hand, tell me I had courage. And they said, some of that stuff you talked about, I didn't know. One lady said, I didn't know I could run for one of those offices. I thought I was as high as I could go. And it was just one of those things where I just brought up points that most members probably weren't aware of. One of them being that, internationals pledged $200 million to the Joe Biden campaign. And 40 members of the international executive team made that decision. Now, I've been asking, workers here back in Oregon to go, hey, would you rather have that $100 plus in your back pocket? And nobody said no yet. And the point I was making during my speech was that back when Dukakis was running against Bush, the Teamsters were under federal oversight, and the Teamster leaders wanted to back Dukakis, and the Fed said, no, you need to poll your members. And after the poll came back, 70% wanted to back Bush. And that was the point I was trying to get across to the delegates, and it hit home with some of them.
And this $200 million, was that discussed or debated at the convention?
No, not at all. It wasn't, other than me, nobody else mentioned it. And, and the other thing, Steve, when I got up there, I says, does it bother you that before I put my hat in the ring, there's only one person out of almost 2 million people in this union that running for president? Am I the only one that thinks that's something's wrong with that picture? And of course, I got some applause, and people were like, yeah, that is kind of weird.
And the fact that the members have not been informed about the election prior to the election, I know I've talked to people in SEIU 2015 who were unaware that there was an election. Also, SEIU 1021. And April Verrett's local, she was past president of 2015, which has 400,000 members. Apparently, those members were not even informed that there was an election for international president and that they would have an opportunity to run if they wanted to run for president. Does that sound like a democratic union?
No, it's an autocratic union. If you really want to know, I mean, the Constitution of the SEIU International says members have the right to participate fully in the democratic processes of the union. It's just that simple. And it's like they did not do that.
And what has been the response when you got back? Because there's been no news reports anywhere that I've seen in the United States about the fact that there was a competing candidate and there was a challenge to April Verrett.
Well, I guess they didn't think it was newsworthy.
What is the state of the labor movement? You have said that the union has to first and foremost defend the members, that's the important thing. And if the members aren't informed about the working of a union, how are they going to be defended?
Well, that's a good question, Steve. If you don't know your rights, you don't know when your rights are being trampled on. And the quote E. Raymond Brown out of Ghetto Physics, if you're not aware of the game, then you're vulnerable to the game. And let me tell you, we are being gamed because we pay dues to our locals, and then they send in a per capita tax to the international. And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars here. I mean, when you've got 2 million people, if you just take a dime off of them, that's $200,000. And this is going on every day. And so they've got more than enough money. If they want to inform members and follow the law, they can do it.
And you also feel that the process of a survey of the members, was that ever done in the SEIU? I know that you were supporting.
No.
What happened with Bernie Sanders in his campaign?
Well, I think we all know what happened. And in fact, that was one of the things I told my executive director when she was saying, well, April's been doing this for 23 years and blah, blah, blah. And, it's her term. She deserves it. I go, wow, that reminds me a lot like what they said about Hillary Clinton when they did their dirty thing against Bernie Sanders. And she was like, well, Bernie Sanders was a serious candidate. You're not a serious candidate. It's like, well, how much more serious? You put your hat in the ring, you're a serious candidate. But the bottom line is that, the whole idea of nominations are usually, you alert members that, nominations are open. Well, the only time nominations were open for the international president was during the convention. So members had no clue. They didn't inform us that nominations were open. We didn't get a voter's pamphlet. And in fact, at the convention, there was no debate between the candidates. I mean, April didn't even really give a candidate statement. She had two people, she had somebody nominate her, she had two people second the nomination, but she herself didn't speak. So, like I said, the whole thing was choreographed. I mean, down to the minute. They knew what was going to happen. It was all set up. And they were mad at me because I basically made them follow the democratic process and we had to do a roll call vote. They just wanted to just run it right through.
And you have made some complaints about the election process and about violation of your rights as a board member and a rank and file member of the union. What are you demanding now as far as a rerun of the election? Are you saying that there should be another election in SEIU?
Yes. In fact, I want to go even further. I'm requesting that a trusteeship be established to restore democratic procedures in accordance with, 29 U.S.C. 462. The election must be rerun with proper notification and fair opportunity for all members to nominate candidates and vote. It's just that simple.
So you've made this complaint to the Labor Department?
Well, no, not yet. I've made it to SEIU International. I have to follow the rules or I won't have a valid complaint with the Department of Labor. So I sent my complaint in via email a couple days ago. Yesterday I sent it in via certified mail just to dot the I's and cross the T's. 2 copies signed. And so now I have to wait. And I don't remember if it's 30 days or 90 days, but I believe I saw something where it might be up to 90 days. And then on the 91st day, because they will either A, just ignore me like they've done in the past, or B, what they'll do is they'll say for various reasons why the election should stand, then I can take it to the Department of Labor. Meanwhile, because of the harassment, intimidation, and bullying and election interference, that part I believe I can take to the Department of Labor straight away. I should not have to wait on that part of the complaint because it's basically 3 separate complaints the way I see it. We have an election rules violation, we have member rights violated, and we have, in my particular case, intimidation, bullying, and harassment.
Now, they bullied you, according to your report, and they didn't want you to run. What does that say to the members of the SEIU?
Basically says is you toe the line. You do as you're told and don't ask questions. And pay your dues. I kind of joke about that, say be a good union member. And in fact, one lady who voted for me, her president said, don't vote for him. She goes, I'm voting for him. And she did. But that's what's going on.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for joining us. We've been talking with Avery Horton. He's a board member of SEIU 503 in Oregon, and he also was a candidate for president of the SEIU and was demanding that they follow the rules and that the members be informed that there actually is going to be an election for international president. And he found out about that at the convention where he self-nominated and became a candidate for president and had a vote, and is continuing to say that that election was improper and there needs to be another election in SEIU. So thanks for joining us, Avery.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate your time.